Hello and welcome. Tonight, President of Senate and Speaker of the House of Representatives announced principal officers for the upper and lower chambers of the 10th National Assembly. APC kicks against decision by the Assembly leadership. INEC receives 215 case files from the police after investigations into electoral offences during the 2023 general elections. INEC chairman vows prosecution of all offenders. The Presidential Election Petition Tribunal admits as exhibits the Chicago State University credentials of President Bola Tinubu, set to call oral witnesses. And 7 people injured, 3 of them in serious condition after a man drove his car into pedestrians on a street in Tel Aviv, Israel.
On business news tonight, bakers set to raise price of bread as impact of fuel subsidy removal and liberalization of foreign exchange market takes toll on the cost of production.
And from the nation's capital, FCDA revokes license of Nazia Building and Civil Engineering Company Limited, owners of the 3-story building that collapsed in Abuja yesterday.
We kick off from the National Assembly, where the 10th session appears to be taking shape with the appointment of the principal officers in both chambers. In the upper chamber, following the resumption of legislative proceedings today after a 2-week recess, President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, announced Senator Opeyemi Bamidele from Ekiti State as Senate leader and Senator Dave Umahi from Ebonyi State as Deputy Senate leader. He also announced the Chief Whip, Deputy Chief Whip, as well as the minority leaders, explaining that the officers emerged by consensus. Our correspondent Zinda Kibe reports.
It's back to work for these senators who are resuming after a 2-week recess to allow them settle down for the task ahead. They had gone on a break a day after the inauguration of a 10th Assembly. The day in the Red Chamber begins with the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, announcing the names of principal officers from the majority All Progressives Congress, who he says emerged by consensus.
APC, the All Progressive Congress, caucus of the Senate, after due consultations, have emerged with their leadership, which will be the fulcrum of commencing other businesses in the chambers. So I'm happy to announce that by consensus, the Senate leader is Senator Opeyemi Bamidele. He will be the majority leader of the Senate and the Senate leader. Senator Mohammed Ali Ndume will be the Chief Whip of the 10th Senate. Senator David Umahi, by your consent, will act as the deputy leader, and Senator Oyorola Isha Ashiru will be the deputy chief whip.
He's ready to announce the names of the principal officers from the minority parties. But it appears some senators want further discussions on this matter, prompting the Senate President to call for an executive session.
So we'll go for a 10-minute closed session before further announcement.
Less than 30 minutes later, the session ends. Plenary resumes, and the Senate President makes an announcement.
Majority of members of the minority caucus of the Senate, made up of about 7 political parties, have come up with their leadership. So I will just proceed to announce. Senator Simon Davor Nwakwom, minority leader. Distinguished Senator Oyewumi Olarere, Deputy Minority Leader. Distinguished Senator Darlington Wokocha, Minority Whip. Distinguished Senator Rufai Hanga, Deputy Minority Whip.
Curiously, all principal officers in the minority leadership are all former lawmakers in the House of Representatives and none from the Senate. But the emergence of the principal officers from the minority appears to have ruffled the feathers of some senators from minority parties.
of the Federal Republic and of Nigeria on a minority party, and a minority leader has emerged without even sending me a text message that I'm seeking for your vote or your concurrence, support to be a minority leader. What type of parties are we having in PDP? We have 36 out of the 50 senators that are in the minority caucus, and then we cannot even come together and agree who should lead us.
The position that went to Senator Hanga should have gone to somebody out of from the minority from a different state, so as to continue to balance, because the Deputy Senate presidency is already in Kano.
Now that the positions of the principal officers of the Senate have been filled, the next task before the upper chamber is to name its special and standing committees, as well as the leaders and members of these committees. The upper chamber would also quickly need to define and set its legislative agenda, which is supposed to guide it for the next 4 years. From the National Assembly, Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Similarly, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, also announced the majority and minority leaders in the lower chamber of the National Assembly. Our correspondent Terry Kumi reports that there were no dissenting voices to the announcement.
Plenary resumes in the House of Representatives after a 3-week holiday to allow members settle down to their new responsibilities as federal lawmakers. The Speaker welcomes his colleagues with a speech.
I must acknowledge the swift action taken by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in injecting fresh ideas into the security sector for the appointment of new security chiefs. We hope the new security chiefs will respond to the security situations with the urgency it requires. On our part, we will provide the required legislative support in the defense of our nation.
He then reads 2 letters containing the names of the majority and minority leadership of the House.
Honorable Julius Ehobere, APC Edo, as majority leader. Honorable Halems Abdullahi, APC Kogi, as Deputy Majority Leader. Number 1, Honorable Kingsley Chinda has been nominated as the Minority Leader, and he is from the party PDP extraction. Honorable Ali Hussain Madaki, Guinea, as Deputy Minority Leader from the NNPP.
Honorable Kingsley Chinda's emergence comes 4 years after the Speaker of the 9th House, Femi Gbajabiamila, refused to recognize his nomination by the PDP on the grounds that there were other minority parties who had put forward their own nominations to include other members of the PDP at the time. Honorable Kingsley Chinda is a loyalist of the immediate past governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, who appears to have formed an alliance with the ruling All Progressives Congress. This is a concern for a member of the party and former spokesperson of the Atiku Presidential Campaign Organization.
Kingsley Chinda is an apologist of Wike. Wike is doing his youth service with APC. Wike's spirit, soul, and body is with APC. So if the leadership of the party is an appendage of Nyesom Wike, for example, how confident will I be that such an individual will pose opposition? Wike is as alleged, is looking for juicy appointment in this government. He would ordinarily not want people associated with him to be a problem to the government.
The diversity in both chambers of the National Assembly has produced a minority leadership to include the New Nigeria People's Party and the Labour Party. However, of interest is the fact that only one female lawmaker has been named as a member of the leadership of the House, specifically the majority All Progressives Congress, as it was in the 9th House of Representatives. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
In the meantime, it seems the announcement of principal officers by the Senate and House of Representatives leadership has not gone down well with the leadership of the ruling All Progressives Congress. The Senator Abdullahi Adamu-led National Working Committee of the APC has disowned the majority leadership position, saying the party has not officially communicated the presiding officers to the National Assembly. National Chairman of the party, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, made the declaration during a meeting with governors of the party under the aegis of the Progressives Governors Forum. He described the announcement as rumor until the party formally resolves and communicates with the National Assembly leadership in writing. Away from the National Assembly leadership, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says it has received 215 case files from the police following the arrest and conclusion of investigation into electoral offences arising from the 2023 general elections. Chairman of the Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, stated this at a meeting with resident electoral commissioners in Abuja. He told the gathering that the Commission is currently looking at all the evidence of infractions during the elections with a view to prosecuting the offenders, who may include some high-ranking officials of the Commission.
Since the 2023 general elections were concluded in March, this is the first time that the INEC chairman will be holding a public meeting with all resident electoral commissioners. There have been expectations among Nigerians that the commission will review its activities and the way its officials discharged their duties during the last elections. The chairman affirms this as a purpose for this meeting.
Since the conclusion of the election, diverse opinions have been expressed by political parties, candidates, observers, analysts, and the general public on aspects of the elections that took place in February and March. Following the conclusion of the election, the time has come for introspection, stock-taking, review, and evaluation.
According to Professor Yakubu, so far, INEC has received 54 reports on the 2023 general elections from accredited national and international observers, the latest being that of the European Union Election Observer Mission. Like several others before it, the report highlighted some operational lapses which have contributed to a dwindling public trust in INEC.
The election exposed enduring systemic weaknesses and therefore signal a need for further legal and operational reforms to enhance transparency and accountability.
Notwithstanding, the electoral umpire believes strongly that the overall report of the 2023 general elections reflects the will of the people.
Our record shows that these elections have produced the most diverse outcomes ever produced since 1999. Today, 5 political parties produced state governors. 7 parties won senatorial seats. 8 are represented in the House of Representatives and 9 in the state houses of assembly. Clearly, the 10th National Assembly is certainly the most diverse in party representation since 1999. What is clear from these records also is that the days of single-party dominance of our national politics are probably gone. Furthermore, many prominent candidates lost in the constituencies they contested, and political parties lost in some of their presumed strongholds. Despite the divergent opinions about the outcome of the election, the overall outlook suggests that it is fair reflection of a complex multi-party democracy.
The INEC chairman, however, acknowledges some challenges which were both structural and man-made and vows to prosecute all who are culpable.
We are presently looking at all the evidence of infractions during the election, including the prosecution of electoral offenders. We are looking at the activities of all actors involved in the election, including some of our high-ranking officials. I can also confirm that we have received 215 case files from the Nigeria police following their arrest and the conclusion of investigation into electoral offenses arising from the 2023 general election. We are working with the Nigerian Bar Association, the NBA, to prosecute the alleged offenders.
So far, the Nigeria Bar Association has submitted a list of 427 lawyers who will assist the electoral umpire to prosecute electoral offenders pro bono.
In the days ahead, many Nigerians will be watching to see how these suspected electoral offenders are prosecuted and punished to serve as deterrents going forward.
In part two, after the break, the president meets with officials from the Bank of America in Abuja, says he is confident that the nation is on the right track to achieving success. We'll have that story in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If this is joining us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live from Channels Television. Here's a reminder of our top stories. President of Senate and Speaker of the House of Representatives announced principal officers for the upper and lower chambers of the 10th National Assembly. APC kicks against decision by the Assembly leadership. INEC receives 215 case files from police after investigations into electoral offences during the 2023 general elections. INEC chairman vows prosecution of all offenders. The Presidential Election Petition Tribunal admits as exhibits the Chicago State University credentials of President Bola Tinubu, set to call oral witnesses. And 7 people injured, 3 of them in serious condition after a man drove his car into pedestrians on a street in Tel Aviv, Israel. Now to legal matters. The Presidential Election Petition Court has admitted as exhibits the Chicago State University credentials of President Bola Tinubu. The president formally opened his defense today in a petition filed against his election victory by the People's Democratic Party and its presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar. At the resumed hearing of the petition, the educational documents tended to establish his attendance and graduation at the American University, comprises his admission letter issued by the institution and other items. Having laid the documentary evidence to establish its case, lawyers to President Tinubu asked for an adjournment to enable them call oral witnesses.
The courtroom is again filled to capacity as the All Progressives Congress opened its defense in the petition filed by the People's Democratic Party challenging the election of President Bola Tinubu. Through his lead counsel, Wole Olanipekun, President Tinubu tendered his Chicago State University credentials and his U.S. visa documents to prove that he visited the United States of America unhindered between 2011 and 2021. President Tinubu, who tendered the documents to debunk allegations of criminality contained in the petition against him, also made available to the court all documents of the Nigeria Immigration Service which cleared him for the U.S. trips. Also admitted as exhibits by the court are the United States of America's embassy letter of April 4, 2003, which is a response to a letter of the Nigerian police dated February 3, 2003, which claimed that the embassy had no criminal records of Tinubu in the United States of America. The documents were admitted despite objections against the admissibility by the PDP and the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. However, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) and the All Progressives Congress (APC), who are first and third respondents in the petition, did not object to the admission of all the documents. Besides the educational records, the court further admitted an originating summons of a suit instituted at the Supreme Court by the Attorneys General of Adamawa, Akwa Ibom, Bayelsa, Delta, Edo and Sokoto states, challenging the educational background of President Tinubu to stand for the 2023 presidential election. Earlier in the day, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) closed its defense in the petition filed by the Labour Party after calling one witness at the Presidential Election Petitions Court. The witness, Lawrence Bayode, an ICT expert who admitted that some of the results downloaded from INEC's portal were blurred. He, however, insisted on the cross-examination that the results of the presidential election released by the Commission are authentic. Lawyer to the Labour Party, Mr. Patrick Ekweto, disagrees, saying the results cannot be authentic when they are largely unreadable.
INEC has called their ICT director, who came to, justify what INEC did by way of what they said, the glitches that occurred, how they tried to fix the glitches, how they deployed patches to fix the glitches. So apart from this issue of technological glitches, there would have been no problem with the election.
Further hearing in the petition has been adjourned to the 5th of July by the presiding justice of the court, Justice Haruna Samani.
Meanwhile, in Ogun State, the People's Democratic Party and its governorship candidate, Ladi Adebutu, have presented 8,000 documents as exhibits against the victory of Governor Dapo Abiodun at the March 18th governorship election. The governorship candidate of the PDP in the petition is challenging the victory of Governor Abiodun based on alleged non-compliance with the Electoral Act and corrupt practices during the election. Counsel to Mr. Adebutu, senior advocate of Nigeria, Godi Uche, presented the documents in various bags before the tribunal sitting at the magistrate court at Abeokuta, Ogun State capital. He prayed the three-man panel to admit the documents as evidence against Governor Abiodun. The chairman of the tribunal, Justice Hamidu Kanaza, in his ruling gave the petitioners 2 days to allow the respondents to inspect the documents and adjourned sitting till Thursday, July the 6th. Away from the judiciary, the president says he is confident that his administration is on the right track to achieve success in spite of the prevailing challenges. President Bola Tinubu made the remark today when he received officials from the Bank of America in his office. The president said his government was committed to instituting reforms that would advance sustainable growth and development of the country, noting that every available help will be appreciated. Our correspondent Gloria Mizuke reports.
In the last 1 month, President Bola Tinubu has made no bones about his plans to deepen investment in the country, receiving in audience various potential investors, including officials from the Bank of America, led by the President of International for the bank, Mr. Bernard Mensah, at the State House. At this maiden meeting with the team since assumption into office, President Tinubu asked the bank's management for support and partnership that would advance mutual benefits for both parties. According to a statement released by the president's spokesperson, Mr. Dele Alaki, it says, "We believe we are on the right track so far. We believe we need all the help we can get." The Bank of America, who only days ago had advised the president to reduce oil theft as part of his next big move, applauds him for the recent achievements.
We're excited with the new government, some of the early decisions that they've taken. So really we're looking to see how we can help, how we can partner. We have a lot of global resources that we think we can help with the Nigerian economy. But, you know, we operate on such a global basis. We're a huge international firm. We have a $3 trillion balance sheet, and we touch so many things across. We think we can help think through the markets. We can help think through the financial architecture and structure. We can also help think through things like technology, new technology applications. We can think about the whole global debates around climate and how we can bring resources to bear so that Nigeria can also really take its seat on the global stage on these issues.
But ultimately, the team from Bank of America pointed out that they felt that the financing, the liquidity that we required, even in foreign exchange, that a lot of it is actually in the hands of Nigeria, that Nigerian savings are enough to propel the Nigerian economy and make it grow, increase employment, and reduce poverty. Of course, we too have our own ideas, but it's good to have the best institutions, the best brains in the world working on the issues of Nigerian economy.
President Tinubu also met with the chairman of the Progressives Governors Forum, Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, Governor Basi Otu of Cross River State, governors of Kwara, as well as the former national chairman of the APC, Senator Adams Oshiomhole. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
In other stories, the controversy over the authenticity of the JAMB results of Miss Mesoma Ejikeme, a student of Anglican Girls Secondary School in Nnewi, Anambra State, is still a subject of debate. While the Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board is maintaining that the result was forged, Miss Mesoma and her father are countering JAMB's claims.
I went to JAMB portal to print these results, and this is what they gave me. This is the result.
A 19-year-old student is now on a collision course with the nation's apex examiner into all tertiary institutions, a fact-check face-off that has dominated public discourse in the past few days. Ms. Ejikeme Mesoma, a student of Anglican Girls Secondary School in Nnewi, Anambra State, had sat for the 2023 Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board examination and claims to have secured the highest score of 362 across the nation, a feat that attracted the benevolence of a businessman who rewarded her with scholarship. Not too long after that, the examiner, JAMB, comes out to dispute her claim, alleging that her result was forged. In response, Ms. Mesoma counters JAMB's claim, insisting that the results emanated from JAMB's portal, and the issue is now a subject of investigation.
This is my aggregate, 362. This is exactly how I printed it. I downloaded it from that site. So they now saying that I forged my results is what I don't know. And I'm traumatized that they accused me of forging my own results, because I am not capable of this, forging results.
What really is going on?
In an interview with Channels Television, JAMB spokesperson, who had earlier released a statement, doubles down on its position that the result was a case of forgery.
She's the only person parading this particular result sheet. Go on the street, I challenge anybody, ask candidates that have sat for 2023 UTME, whether anybody has printed this kind of result. This is what we use in 2021, and we never use it again. From 2022, this is the system, results label is what we have been producing, because it comes with a picture.
Mesoma's father defends her and questions JAMB's timing in coming out with their position.
362, the total score that she got after that examination, that was what she got. And she used that 362, she has been trading for more than 2 months now. JAMB did not challenge that her result was fake. It's just about 2 months and a week they came with another result. So they are working against my daughter to pull her down with this new result that they came with now.
Pending the outcome of further investigations, the jury is still divided over who really is telling the truth. However, JAMB has barred Ms. Mesoma from sitting for the board's examination for the next 3 years, a decision that will certainly elicit more reaction in the coming days. Let's head to Abuja for more stories. Terry Kume is standing by. Hi, Terry.
Hello, Millicent. Looks like the authorities holding their grounds, as we say it here. Well, this time the Federal Capital Development Authority has revoked the license of Nazia Building and Civil Engineering Company Limited, owners of the 3-story building which collapsed yesterday at the Life Camp area in Abuja. The Director of Development Control at the FCTA, however, acknowledged that the developer was granted license to build on the land, but explained that the structure failed an integrity test and the developer was instructed to stop the construction. Our correspondent Kayla Megwa reports.
It is the morning after, and the scale of the devastation from this collapsed 3-story building is in clear view.
Yeah, wicked people.
The license for the construction of this building was given to Nazia Building and Civil Engineering Company Limited. It was designed to be a 5-story hotel with this hall next to it for events. Neither the developer nor his staff are anywhere to be seen today. As the bulldozers rummage through the rubble, the representatives of the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria blamed the collapse on the developer, who continued to build despite an order stopping construction after a failed integrity test.
They conducted an integrity test at this site, and they recommended that the development should be suspended. But during the break, the developer moved back the site and continued construction, which led to the collapse.
What break?
During the Salah break.
More samples of the building are collected for more tests, as seen here, and the same sentiments are shared by the FCT authorities.
A license was granted, plot was allocated. He submitted a plan for approval, which was assessed and approved. We are going to, in fact, he ceased to own a property now. He ceased to own the plot now.
Workers try to save what they can from the next building before the demolition begins, as the FCT authorities say the building also failed the integrity test. The demolition begins.
The kind of wire he used, as well as the substance. You see, decking is just like a mat. That is not a building construction. I'm pretty sure he must have used substandard product to build.
How many bags do you use at a time for one misa?
Meanwhile, we came across one of the site workers called Nuhu. He was being questioned by the chairman, Council of Registered Builders of Nigeria, Mr. Kennedy Aimiru, about the quality of the casting done on the collapsed building.
I just start with 5 sand, then 6, 5 sand, 6, 5 stone, 6 sand. He now told me that no, I should put less than 1 bag. The owner, I should not put 1 bag. I don't know whether you understand me.
Watching these bulldozers pull down these structures, one can't help but imagine how much money is being lost in the process. But this particular building, as we heard from the authorities, failed the same integrity test that the collapsed building failed. Developers in the FCT are being urged to ensure that they maintain safety standards as they try to get their buildings done. And as with this particular demolition, we're hoping that the FCT authorities and the emergency management agencies are able to act before these sorts of collapses happen. And they say this demolition happening right behind me is to forestall that sort of situation. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
Well, thank you, Kayla. Now, young lawmakers recently elected into the National and State House of Assembly have been encouraged to come up with policies that will help promote the nation's socio-economic development. The deputy head of the European Union delegation to Nigeria and ECOWAS, Alexander Borges, stated this at a meeting organized for young lawmakers in Abuja, where he called on the young parliamentarians to see their role as key to peace and development.
For the 5th time, YAGA Africa gathers young parliamentarians in the bid to steer their minds towards the promotion of policies that will enhance peace and unity in the country. The meeting centers on leadership, just as the present national and state assemblies settle down to business.
We want to constantly celebrate young lawmakers, because for us, when you succeed, Nigeria succeeds. When you succeed, Nigerian youth are inspired to believe in Nigeria.
Youth representation in 2023 did record an increase, a slight increase in the number of young people who are in state houses of assemblies. In the House of Reps in 2019, it was 3%. And in 2023, it's about 3.92%.
Some of the factors that hinder the participation of youths in parliament, especially in developing countries, include legal obstacles, lack of financial resources, lack of access to networks, and gender inequality. Closing these gaps is described as imperative to developing democratic nations.
The passage of the Not Too Young to Run, which was mentioned here, act or amendment, is really it's a bit of a landmark, of course. But the law is only as good as its implementation here in Nigeria, in Europe, in any country in the world.
Outside the hall, some young legislators talk about how they hope to impact their constituents.
Where I come from, my constituency, the youth have been suffering for years ago, including the women. So, for that, I will try on my possible best to deliver positive impact to the society. This constituency outreach comes in form of lobbying, facilitating projects to our immediate constituency, which is Owodionere constituency. And also with this kind of gathering, Yaga Africa, I've been able to network, I've been able to talk to more people regarding how we can partner in order to facilitate things to the constituency.
It's over 20 years since the return of democracy, and the statistics around the involvement of youths has been rising, although there is room for improvements.
Now, Prince's Trust International has officially launched in Lagos, Nigeria, with a resolve to help more young Nigerians achieve their dreams. Following that launch, the organization has also organized a career fair for job seekers in collaboration with the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association and Field of Skills and Dreams. For over 40 years, Prince's Trust International has focused on delivering education, employability and enterprise opportunities for young people spreading across the globe. Our correspondent Dare Do reports.
Access to finance to MSMEs. We give out across several categories.
Prince's Trust International continues to give young people from the country a new avenue to access sustainable and long-term employment, and this event is another effort at sustaining that tempo. The launch of the organization in Nigeria also comes with an opportunity for job seekers to meet employers of labor.
For this job fair, we had 3,891 applications, all on file. And as is custom to us, we had to go through various processes to screen out so many people just to be able to get about 120 applicants in here today.
The event breaks into panel discussion, with each of the panelists sharing practical experiences that could help prospective employees navigate the labor market. A cohort of young people already received training, allowing them to work as solar technicians, caterers, fashion and textile designers, as well as receive mentoring from employers within their chosen fields.
My first job to be employed was after I did the program. Before then, I was learning different skills, applying to jobs, and no one was calling.
In Nigeria, where the unemployment rate stands at 33.3%, the organization says it is identifying gaps in core knowledge, education, and other employability skills for young people to thrive.
There's a jobs gap because the demographic changes, the numbers of young people mean that many will have to work in the informal economy. There's a skills gap because in Nigeria we know 10 million young people don't have an education. Many others leave school without the skills for work. And there's also an experience gap because employers say you can't get a job until you've got that experience, but young people can't get the experience because they can't get a job. And the thing about Prince's Trust programs is that we aim to close those gaps through programs that focus on the core skills that young people need.
We use local partners, so that allows you in a country like Nigeria to basically scale very quickly around the country. The second is we focus on skills that, whether you're an engineer, a medical doctor, an entertainer, a sports person, an administrator, those skills are important. It is problem solving, it is focusing on your values, it is building resilience, it is communicating effectively, and those life skills that are important in every part of your journey.
The PTI, founded by King Charles III in 1976 to tackle the crisis of youth unemployment, helping them to start careers, launch businesses, and renege with education. Dari Ido, Channels Television News.
All right, a wrap from the nation's capital. The news continues in Lagos. Millicent?
Thank you, Terry. Yes, indeed. It appears the gap between the nation's health sector and its health training requirements is about to be closed. That's the major takeaway from the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the University of Medical Sciences, Ondo State, and the West African College of Surgeons. The agreement provides an opportunity for resident trainees from Nigeria and across the West African region to undergo PhD programs at Nigeria's first specialized medical and health sciences university, UNIMED. The signing ceremony held at the West African College of Surgeons Secretariat in Lagos.
This is the official signing of an MOU between the University of Medical Sciences, Ondo State, and the West African College of Surgeons. And to underscore the importance of the event, the Vice-Chancellor of the university, Professor Adeshegun Fatusi, exchanges gifts with President of the College of Surgeons, Professor Emmanuel Ezeome. Both scholars describe the event as a significant landmark for Nigeria and the West African sub-region.
This collaboration will enable us to use their university as a training ground for our residents who are undergoing the residency training, for them to also do research for PhD dissertation work and earn their PhDs, even as they graduate from the residency training. So they don't need to come and do extensive period again after resident training.
It will reduce the amount of money Nigerians need to spend outside the country to pursue things like PhD, because we are not existing. But now we find the University of Medical Sciences where this program will be running, and this program is not being run by our university alone. The beauty about this partnership is that it opens any candidate to the best of professionals across Nigerian universities as far as they are members of the West African College of Surgeons.
The VC also highlights the university's quality.
Today we have the largest collection of medical and health sciences programs in Nigeria. For many years, there are areas of medical sciences and health training that have been neglected at tertiary level. For example, things like audiology, speech therapy, prosthetic and orthotics, they hardly exist in Nigerian universities. But by our work, we have started Nigeria's first faculty of medical rehabilitation. In fact, it's the first faculty of medical rehabilitation across West Africa.
Established in 2015, UNIMED's main focus is to prepare students for leading professional roles in all disciplines in the health sector in Nigeria, the continent, and the world at large.
Up next is business news. Here's Jeffrey Ozono.
It's time for business news. The price of one of our major staple foods, bread, is set to rise even further as the producers of the commodity lament impact of higher cost on production. The president of Premium Bread Makers Association of Nigeria, Emmanuel Norha, who disclosed this, attributes the imminent increase in the price of bread to the recent removal of fuel subsidy as well as the liberalization of the forex market. According to him, the floating of forex market has led to the increase in the cost of clearing baking ingredients, which are mostly imported. Nigeria's Central Bank Monetary Policy Committee may need to increase interest rates by at least 700 basis points before the end of the year to curb inflation. And that's according to the Bank of America. Economists at the Bank Sub-Saharan Africa told journalists that the hike was necessary to tackle soaring inflation caused by removal of fuel subsidy and unification of countries' foreign exchange market. They mentioned that the inflation may rise to 30% by the end of the year, up from 22.4% in May, if the decision was not taken as the country awaits new inflation numbers mid-month. The Debt Management Office announced listing 2 FGN savings bonds for subscription for this month at 1,000 naira per unit. According to the statement by the DMO, the first offer is a 2-year FGN savings bond, which will be due on July 12, 2025, offered at an interest of 9.07% per annum, while the second offer is a 3-year FGN savings bond due on July 12, 2026, and offered at 10.07 interest rate per annum. The opening due date for both offers is July the 3rd, closing date is July the 7th, while the settlement date is on July the 13th. The National Bureau of Statistics says the average fare paid by air passengers for specified routes for a single journey increased by 34% within a year. According to its latest Transport Fare Watch report for May, the NBS said the fare increased from 55,000 naira on a year-on-year basis in May 2022 to 74,000 naira 2 months ago, although the NBS did not give reasons behind the significant hike in air prices within the comparative period. Experts attribute it to the fluctuating prices of aviation fuel and forex scarcity. So some company news now. Nestle Nigeria PLC says it has appointed Namit Mishra as its Finance and Control Director with effect from August the 1st. According to a statement sent to the Nigerian Exchange Limited, Mr. Mishra succeeds Saman Salim, who will be stepping down from the position on July the 31st. The company mentioned that Mr. Mishra has diligently managed the volatility and ensured seamless business continuity in Nestle Bangladesh amid ongoing forex challenges in the country during his tenure. Let's now head to the stock market, where sentiment in the domestic bourse turned negative as profit-taking activities in Abuja Cement and MTN Nigeria caused a significant drop in the benchmark index. Willibong tells us more.
Welcome to the stock market report. I'm pretty sure a lot of you were expecting that. It's the first pullback this quarter, and this does not come as a surprise. After all the gain in the market, profit-taking definitely will set in. The all-share index today dipped today by nearly 2%, and the market cap lost about 672 billion naira in value, completely wiping out yesterday's gains. We can see the result of that impact in the benchmark index, as it takes a step down from the 61,000 level. And this is no thanks to losses in some large caps across sectors like the banking, consumer goods, industrial goods. And the only outlier was the oil and gas index. It was up by 1.91% today on a 20 naira gain from Total Energies. Other stocks such as Lasaco and Wema Bank were not immune from the profit-taking frenzy, while Consolidated Hallmark Insurance emerged as top gainer today. Well, what a sell day at the NGX. But not to worry, it's also an entry opportunity for others. And that's the stock market report. I'm Will Ibong.
That's it on Business News. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Millicent, it's back to you.
Thanks, Jeffrey. To some international news now. Police has been combing the scene of a car ramming in the Israeli city of Tel Aviv today. 7 people were injured, 3 seriously. They say a 20-year-old man drove into pedestrians standing outside a shopping center. It's Simon Pusey with more on this and other international stories and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. 7 people have been hurt in an attack, 3 of whom are in a serious condition after a man drove his car into pedestrians on a street in Tel Aviv. Officers say he then proceeded to get out of the vehicle to stab civilians with a sharp object. The suspected attacker is thought to be a Palestinian from the West Bank. An Israeli police spokesperson said the suspect was neutralized at the scene by a civilian first responder. A statement from Palestinian militant group Hamas said the attack was part of a natural response to the ongoing massacre of our people.
I'm right now in Tel Aviv. Behind me is a bus stop where a terror attack took place. Individual rammed his car into civilians in a populated area of Tel Aviv, managing to injure 7 civilians. He got out of his vehicle and began trying to stab the civilians that were around him. Luckily, there was an individual, a civilian, who was armed, and he managed to neutralize this terrorist.
Meanwhile, Palestinian authorities say the 10 people killed during Israel's operation yesterday were between 16 and 23 years old. Photos have emerged of the operation continuing today. Thousands have left the refugee camp in the West Bank since it began. Israel says it is almost complete, but the United Nations says it is worried about the use of force.
We are alarmed at the scale of air and ground operations that are taking place in Jenin and continuing today in the West Bank, and especially on airstrikes hitting a densely populated refugee camp. This is the second operation in Jenin involving airstrike within 2 weeks. Assessments are ongoing, and as I said, operations are continuing, but as of this morning, the Palestinian Ministry of Health confirmed the deaths of 10 Palestinians, including 3 children.
A prominent Russian journalist and a lawyer have been attacked and suffered serious injuries after several masked men in the Russian region of Chechnya forced their car to stop. Yelena Milashina, a well-known journalist for the Novoya Gazeta newspaper, which has lost its license in Russia, was traveling to the Chechen capital Grozny from the local airport with a lawyer called Alexander Nemov when they were attacked. The attackers shaved Milashina's head, broke several of her fingers and covered her head with green dye. There has been no immediate comment from the authorities in Chechnya. A shooting in a parking lot in Fort Worth in Texas has left at least 3 people dead and 8 people wounded. That's according to media reports citing the police. 1 was pronounced dead at the scene and 2 others died in hospital, while the other 8 were also hospitalized. The reason for the shooting wasn't immediately clear.
So a little before midnight, just before July 4th, we had a shooting. It appears that we had multiple victims that were shot. Probably 3 of them were transported to Harris Southwest. 5 more victims were transported to John Peter Smith. Right now we know that 2 persons have succumbed to their injuries and have passed away from being shot at this point.
A US policeman who saved a driver from an inferno in her car has been hailed a hero. Sergeant Ashley Taylor was called to Highway 46 in southern Georgia after reports a car had veered off the road. Body cam footage shows him running to the scene of the crash, smashing the car windows and pulling a woman to safety despite the growing flames. Local media reported the driver was having a medical emergency and is expected to make a full recovery. And Britain's Princess of Wales has visited the Wimbledon Tennis Championships and met the former US champion Emma Raducanu and Swiss legend Roger Federer. Raducanu missed this year's French Open and will be absent from Wimbledon too while she recovers from surgery.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Royal Box, Roger Federer!
Kate then met the 8-time winner of the event, Roger Federer, who was welcomed to the Royal Box with a standing ovation. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Nigeria Football Federation President Shehu Gusau insists the federation did their best to prepare the Super Falcons for the upcoming FIFA Women's World Cup. Reacting to some comments attributed to the coach of the team, Randy Waldrop, Gusau says it was impossible to camp the players before the trip to Australia because of the global football calendar. Brazil have arrived at the Women's World Cup earlier today in Australia on a plane which paid tribute to Iran protesters Mahsa Amini and Amir Al-Zadani. Iran is not represented at the Women's World Cup, which takes place in Australia and New Zealand this month. Brazil will touch down in Brisbane are in Group F, alongside France, Jamaica and Panama. That's Sports News. It's back to you, Felicit.
Thank you, Chris. And the main news again. The President of Senate and Speaker of the House of Representatives today announced the appointment of principal officers for the upper and lower chambers of the 10th National Assembly. The APC has kicked against the decision by the Assembly leadership. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, said it has received 215 case files from police after investigations into electoral offences during the 2023 general elections. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu vowed prosecution of all offenders. That's News at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night and stay safe.